Alrighty, for our last lesson dealing with algebraic expressions, we're going to work with factoring expressions. So our essential question is, how do you factor expressions? Now, as a reminder, a factor is a number that is multiplied by another number to get a product, and we know that product is the essentially answer to a multiplication problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how we can use algebra tiles to represent an expression. So here we have what are called X tiles, which are long and skinny tiles. And we'll actually be working with these in class so you could actually move them and use them. But for here, we'll just have them drawn out on paper. So these represent an X tile. Now this one is what we would consider a positive X tile. And in class, you'll see that the positive ones are green and the negative ones are red. So here we have a positive X tile where one of these would represent one X. If I had two tiles, it would represent two X's. And then so forth with our negative tiles. If I had one negative tile, that would represent negative 1x. If I had two tiles, it would represent negative 2x. Now here we have what are called unit tiles. So for every one of these, it represents 1. So if I have one tile, I have just 1. If I have 4 tiles, I have 4. Just the whole number 4. And then over here, we also have our negatives. So 1 negative represents negative 1. 4 negatives would represent negative 4. So here is my expression, 4x plus 8. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a visual representation of this expression. So I have 4x tiles. And we know that 4x is positive, so my tiles are going to be positive. So I have 4x tiles. And now I'm going to have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when we are factoring out expressions, we're trying to put them into the smallest groups, but so that our groups are equal. So as we can see here, I actually have already put them into groups. This group is equal to this group, and is equal to this group, and this group. So I have 4 groups, and within each group I have 1x and 2 unit tiles. So 1x plus 2 unit tiles. So how I would write this? 4 groups of 1x, and we know that 1x can be written as just x, plus 2. Now what you'll notice with factoring is that it's essentially taking an expression and rewriting it with the distributive property. So factoring and the distributive property are very much like opposites of one another. So I've gone from my regular expression, and by factoring, I rewrote it so I would use the distributive property. And a good way to check this is using that distributive property. So if I take 4 times x, well, that's just 4x. And looking back up here, that's what I have here. And then if I multiplied 4 times 2, I get 8, and that's what I have here. So my expression right here matches what I started with. So in factored form, 4x plus 8 is 4 times the quantity x plus 2. All right, let's try another. Now keep in mind, in class, you will have the opportunity to choose whether you use these algebra tiles or not. That is simply your choice. Whatever makes this easier to you. So now we have 6x plus 48. Now I could draw this out, but I would have a whole bunch. I'd have 48 unit tiles. So for this one, I'm not going to draw it out. So I'm going to look at my two numbers, 6 and 48. Now keep in mind, we're factoring these expressions. So I need to find the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor of 6 and 48 is simply 6. So I'm going to factor out 6 from each term in this expression. So 6x divided by 6, that just leaves me with x. I use my same sign, so if this is addition, I have addition here. Now I'm going to factor out, if 6 is the greatest common factor of 48, well, 48 divided by 6 is 8. So once again, if I were to check this, 6 times x, 6 times 8, I'm going to have 6x plus 48. And if that is the same as what you started with, well, then you factored it correctly. So my factored expression is 6 times the quantity of x plus 8. Now let's try this with 7m minus 21. So we can draw it out. 7 tiles. 5, 6, and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, only 7 more to go. Using the algebra tiles is a lot easier than drawing them. So I can see here that I have them in equal groups. So in each group, I have 1 x tile and 3 unit tiles. So I have how many groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have factored out 7 from my expression. And what I'm left with is x, or 1x, minus 3. Keep in mind, if I have subtraction in my expression, I need to have subtraction in this expression here. So checking it, 7 times x is 7x, and 7 times a negative 3 is negative 21. And actually, going back, that would make each one of these unit tiles a negative. That was my mistake. Alrighty, so what I want you to do upon stopping the video, I want you to factor all 4 of these. Give it a shot. If you have any questions, make sure to mark them down, write them down, do whatever you need to do so that you can remember them tomorrow. I want to see these 4 done when you come into class tomorrow.